All right. You entered a plea on January 17th to count one. You entered a plea of guilty. The court found there was sufficient evidence to find you guilty. Count two was waived without objection, and so was the enhancement. According to the plea bargaining agreement, punishments be assessed at 10 years in the prison. Are both parties ready to proceed? State?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, anything you wish to say on behalf of your client?
We would ask the court to allow Mr. Teo allocution, and then we have one.
All right. You want to raise your right hand? You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you can lower your hand, state your name for the record.
My name is Michael Thayer.
All right, what would you like to say?
To begin with, my condolences, my utmost respect to the family of Mr. Neal. I'm guilty. I failed to render aid. I can replay the incident in my head a million times. I kind of wish I didn't get up, or maybe I drove fast or slower. I'm sorry. I apologize to the family. I'm not a bad person. I just made a bad decision that day, and I understand that I have to take responsibility for my actions. That's it, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, we would just have argument. The defendant is charged under the failure to stop or render aid statute resulting in death. It is counsel's belief that the legislative intent behind that statute was not particularly to govern a situation that happened in this case. Back on the 1st of July of 2019, this was during the construction that was still going on, that was heavily around the 151 and 410 interchange south of Petrenko. And because of all that construction, the various entrances and exits to the highways were closed, and people were forced to take, instead of a turnaround, to go through a light and come back around. And it was at the intersection where the turnaround was closed that the incident took place. And unfortunately, given the circumstances, this was in the saddest way to express this, an accident. There was no mens rea or mental culpability by Michael involving this, except for leaving the scene and being an individual who failed to stop and give assistance. According to the evidence, and from what I've seen, the first person on the scene, who was an individual behind the decedents, was a woman who had been a nurse for over 20 years, I believe. And she was immediately on scene and was able to provide whatever medical measures were necessary. This was a highly trafficked area, and due to the city statutes and city laws and requirements, there was off-duty law enforcement around the scene because there was construction going on. That's required by the municipal code. And so there were multiple individuals that were immediately there, present around the scene, and that could have administered far superior aid than Mr. Tello could have on the date in question. And I don't believe that there is anything that Michael could have done that would have changed the outcome that happened to, unfortunately, that happened to Mr. Neal. I think that even though Mr. Teo did drive through that intersection, he wasn't the individual that made the contact. His vehicle was struck. And that's not to put blame on Mr. Neal. That is just to show the court that Mr. Teo was not the individual that tried to take the decedent off of the road. He didn't swerve into him. There wasn't any aggressive actions taken by the defendants against the decedent. And that is the only purpose for which that I inform the court or make that type of argument, not to put any blame on the decedent. I know that Mr. Teo is remorseful for his actions. He has reminded me that on multiple times when we've had interactions with each other, and when he's helped me prepare for this case. And I do believe that is the legislative intent behind the statute to govern a situation on a farm to market road or a rural county road or something where there is not high traffic, where the state wants to discourage individuals from leaving the scene and leaving somebody there to bleed out without any shot or of help. However, that wasn't the case surrounding this incident. I don't believe the DA's office thought this was murder or homicide or manslaughter because none of those charges came down. None of them were presented to a grand jury. And I believe that if the DA's office had believed that to be the case, they would have filed such charges. This is, in the truest form, a terrible, terrible accident. And we understand that everybody here has a duty that needs to be performed, and we ask that the court do nothing over the top other than to follow the agreement. And we would ask that that be done with the understanding that Mr. Teo is remorseful and has pled guilty and understands the gravity of the actions that were taken by him that resulted in the loss of life.
Okay. Anything from the state?
Your Honor, we just asked the court to follow your comments.
All right. Court will find you guilty as previously stated. The court will sentence you to 10 years in the prison, give you credit for any time served. Take in consideration 2019 CR 12685, 2022 CR 5759, and 2022 CR 5760. Is there anything else from either side with regards to sentencing?
Your Honor, we have, I believe, 3 victim impact statements.
All right. Do you have the dismissals or have those already been tendered?
I think those were previously.
All right. Mr. Teo, I'm showing you what's entitled trial court certification of defendant's rights to appeal. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you sign it?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, because this is a plea bargain agreement, because I followed your plea bargain agreement, and because you waive your right to appeal, you do not have the court's permission to appeal. And because this is a felony conviction, you're not allowed to own or possess any weapons or ammunition. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you have a question over what a weapon or ammunition is, you'll need to speak to an attorney. All right, the next issue is the motion for return of property. My understanding is the state is in agreement that the property be returned to the defendant's father, and it is the 1993 Ford Econoline EF 150. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, the court will sign that order. We can go off the record. Mr. Teo, how old are you?
I'm 39, Your Honor.
All right, I see that you're very remorseful. This is what you have to understand. You're not super young. Sometimes people can understand if it's an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, they're not really expert drivers or have been driving long. So maybe it's shock. Let me run home to mom and dad and see what we can fix with this problem. But, you know, the law is the law. If it says you have to stop and render aid, even if that aid is calling somebody and say, hey, there's an accident, this person needs help, you got to do that. You understand?
I understand, Your Honor.
All right. So what's going to happen next is there's going to be victim impact statement. What I can tell you is in this courtroom, I require that everyone to treat everyone with respect. Just listen to what's being said and try to internalize it. Okay.
Okay, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. All right. State.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, I had something planned, but after listening to the little argument that just happened, I can't do that. You left him on the side of the road like a piece of trash. You didn't slow down and look. It was not construction at that zone at the time. You only worried about you. Forget about everything else that might have happened. He might have been alive. He might not have been alive. Did you stop to think about what that would do to us, to him, to your 3 daughters, to your family? Oh, you worry about our stuff and our criminal history at run and hide. That's not a man. That's a child. A man stands up for what is right. No matter if it is going to give him shame, send him to jail. You stand up with pride. But no, you acted like a 2-year-old child and ran and hid. Then you came in this court and asked them to let you go. You run and hide. You come back in this court. Oh, I've got 3 daughters I have to support. You run and hide. Do you know how much I hate you at this moment? And I could hurt you. And I'm a very forgiving person. I've never had this kind of hatred before. And how every ounce of me is to stand over here and let you look at me. This is the first time I've ever seen you show any emotion, except for when they were pleading this 10-year thing. It's a bunch of shit, but I gotta take it. So to sit there and believe that you're actually worried, you're not worried, you're not sorry. You're scared for yourself. A true man is like my husband. He did 15 years in, 21 years in the Air Force, taking care of other people, putting braces on them so they could walk, helping them get through surgery, giving, every ounce, giving. That's a man. Then turn around and do 15 years civil service, still giving up leave to people that needed it, money that needed it, a shoulder to lean on, this main provider for our family. The love of my life, 35 and a half years with that man. And you leave him on the road like a side piece of trash. And I'm supposed to have pity for you? No. I want you to think about it. I have 4 grandchildren. Still do, thank God. My youngest, my 2 boys. 1 and 3. For over a year, they thought their grandfather was trapped inside of a cell phone. Because that was the only way they could communicate to him. Now, they don't even know who he is. My 2 granddaughters try to explain to a 6-year-old why a man would leave and hurt their grandfather and explain heaven to them and make them understand what heaven is. That's hell. And all that you could do is run and hide. I have no pity for you. The only one I have pity for is your parents, your children. In this time that you're in there, I want you to think of all the hell and the torture you've put us through. You get to go home at the end of your time and see your children. They can come see you. Mary never gets to come home. I pray, but not for you, for us. To be able to forgive you. I'll never forget you. But to forgive you for us, so we can live the life that he wanted us to, not that you took from us.